Caution! The AJ and Quill show contains D&D content and is intended for a D&D audience. And, besides that, they're really weird. Hi everyone, welcome to Total Party Quill. I'm your friendly neighborhood tiefling, AJ, and as always, here's my fearless companion, Quill the Dragon. Say hi, Quill.
Greetings, puny humans. How may we serve you today?
So this week, Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden was released, and it doesn't disappoint. And we're going to continue covering tactics for monsters that you're going to find inside that adventure.
So what are we covering today?
Question! What do Hansel and Gretel and Sleeping Beauty both have in common?
Children committing the crime of breaking and entering?
No, hags! Both these stories have hags, and that's what we're going to be covering today in Monster Tactics. Hags are a macabre and creepy addition to any campaign, and make fantastic villains and warlock patrons. Hags come in many different shapes and sizes, and you can be really creative when you make them. But let's not waste any more time. You got questions, we got answers. Let's get Shakespearean.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. To die, to sleep no more.
Alright, good job, Quill. But let's get back to hags, and specifically sea hags. Inside Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden, one of the first hags you're going to encounter, spoiler alert, is going to be a sea hag. So I figure it's probably a good idea to go over some sea hag tactics for everyone.
Sea hags are a CR2 medium fey creature. They can be found on page 179 of the 5th edition Monster Manual.
Sea hags have an AC of 14 and 7d8 hit dice.
They also have a swim speed of 40 feet.
Now something else to keep track of is that sea hags can also be part of a coven like most hags. And if you look on page 176 of the 5th edition Monster Manual, you can find the sidebar for hag covens. Now looking at the stats, sea hags have a high strength and constitution as well as dexterity.
And they can absolutely wreck PCs just using their claws.
Right, and this would suggest that they don't really shy away from melee combat.
In a covenant, all hags gain access to additional spells.
And they gain access to a hag's eye, kind of like what Perseus was dealing with inside the Greek myth.
For hags to gain the benefit of their hag coven, they all must be within 30 feet of each other.
Right, and this idea kind of suggests more of like a back-to-back approach for combat. But that's only if you have a hag coven.
Being back-to-back prevents them from being knocked away from each other, which would violate their coven.
Right, hags need to be within 30 feet of each other to be able to maintain the benefits of being in a coven. Any hag who goes further away from that is actually breaking the coven and will tick off its sisters.
Hags in a coven gain access to additional spells they can all use. Namely, Eye Bite, Contact Other Plane, Phantasmal Killer, Polymorph, Bestow Curse, Counterspell, Lightning Bolt, Hold Person, Locate Objects, Identify, and Ray of Sickness.
And all hags are ugly. Sea hags specifically are the most ugly of any hag.
Sea hags are so ugly that they have a horrific appearance trait, which can frighten creatures on a failed DC 11 Wisdom save.
And for attacks, aside from their devastating claw attack, sea hags also have a Death Glare attack, which can reduce any creature that fails a DC 11 Wisdom saving throw to 0 hit points instantly on a fail.
That's insane.
But let's get into a little bit of the lore so we can try to explain why these stats.
Hags are ancient and dark fey creatures tied to the primal forces of nature.
Hags are old crones that represent a physical manifestation of the corruption of ideals and goals.
Hags delight in seeing innocence and good brought low, and they rely on magic and trickery and general creepiness to destroy everything around them.
Right, hags are also virtually immortal. They spend their long lives collecting ancient knowledge and secrets that should probably better be left forgotten.
Desperate mortals come in search of hags looking for help or advice.
Right, hags are powerful and they know a lot of things, so people go looking for them when they need help.
Desperate mortals come in search of hags looking for help or advice, only to have their requests fulfilled in ways that bring great suffering to themselves and their loved ones. Elminster himself is quoted as saying hags often appear unlooked for in moments of great need because they have been spying on you and see an opportunity for aid now to set up much darker mischief later.
Now, the oldest and most powerful hags are referred to as grandmothers, while the lower status, yet still respectable hags are referred to as aunties. Now, hags love the macabre, and they tend to decorate their house and their vehicles and themselves with dead things and skulls and rotting things. Hags perceive ugliness as beauty and vice versa.
Because both seelie and unseelie courts revere and appreciate beauty among the Fae, hags are almost never found in either court.
Right, and a hag's foul magic and malicious malevolence haunt both your nightmares and fairy tales alike. Now, you see, the thing is, most people are generally familiar with what a hag is, even if they don't realize it. For example, most female Disney villains are in fact hags. And this stems from hags being so prominent in a lot of fairy tales. And this goes to show you just how varied and diverse a villain a hag can actually be. And if you really want, you can go a hag that goes against its type. You can make a hag that has good intentions, or at least neutral intentions, like Ogra from the Dark Crystal, or Mama Odie from The Princess and the Frog. And if you want more information on hags, you can check out Volo's Guide to Monsters. It has a lot of good information and details in there that you can use when crafting this creature. But today, we're just going to be looking at sea hags. Sea hags are the weakest type of hag, with a CR of only 2.
Sea hags are by far the ugliest of all hags. And although they can hide their true form using their illusionary appearance trait, the hag is cursed forever appear ugly. Her illusionary appearance is at best haggard.
Right, and a hag will maintain this illusionary appearance on itself until either it's attacked or it attacks other creatures. And it does this in the hopes of luring its victims even closer. Maybe to make a deal, maybe to attack them. I don't know, they're a hag. But how do we put all this together? How do hags behave in combat? Now, combat begins with a hag disguised using its illusionary appearance. But remember, a sea hag is still very, very ugly, even with this illusionary appearance.
Hags like to talk and trick, and they're generally creepy. They will wait to attack, hopefully luring a creature close to it.
And by close, we mean within 30 feet, because that's the range of its death glare attack.
Now, remember, given the choice, a hag prefers to corrupt things rather than kill them. It prefers to cause suffering rather than causing death.
Right, but a hag isn't above causing death either.
Hags, if they are able, will try to swing a deal from any encounter, but if not, they will enter combat.
Now, on the first round of combat, once PCs are within 30 feet of one or more sea hags, the sea hag will use a bonus action to revert to its true appearance.
Now at this point, all PCs that can see the hags must make a DC 11 Wisdom saving throw, because of the hag's horrific appearance trait. Any PC that fails this Wisdom saving throw is automatically frightened.
Ah yes, the frightened condition. A frightened creature has disadvantage on any attack roll and ability check that it makes while the source of its fear is still within its line of sight. Also, a frightened creature cannot willingly move closer to the source of its fear while it is suffering from the frightened condition. Now, if you look at a hag's intelligence, they're smart enough to be able to figure out which characters are going to be more susceptible to this attack. But they're not exactly intelligent enough to be able to read a character's stats. They're just going to go based on what the characters appear to be. So characters with holy symbols, obvious druids or rangers, and monks are going to be a lot less preferable to things that look like big, heavy, dumb fighters or rogues or wizards.
But the hag isn't infallible and could make a mistake.
Now, if no one was frightened by the hag's horrific appearance, then the hag just uses its claw attack to attack the nearest creature. For this, we're going to say it uses the closest weapon, closest target tactics. Whichever creature is closest to whatever attack it's using is who it's going to attack.
If a hag is in a coven, one of the hags will use Phantasmal Killer or Eye Bite to try to frighten the PCs who resisted the sea hag's horrific appearance.
Right, but you just need to remember that the Eye Bite spell will cause a creature that is frightened to dash away from whatever's frightening it at the start of its turn.
but until the start of its turn it is still frightened of the hag and is susceptible to its death glare attack.
Now once we get into the second round of combat, it really depends on whether the hag is in a coven or if it's by itself for what it's going to do.
If a hag isn't in a coven, it's very simple. It uses its death glare attack against any frightened opponent within 30 feet of it. And if not, it uses its claw attack. If it's in a hag coven, a sea hag who isn't sustaining phantasmal killer or eye bite from the first round, and is close to a frightened opponent,
And by close we mean within 30 feet,
it will try to use its death glare attack. A hag that isn't close to a frightened opponent, but is near one that might screw up a wisdom saving throw, will try to cast Bestow Curse, Polymorph, or Hold Person.
and the hags will use those spells in that order of preference, prioritizing opponents that are engaging the hags in melee combat. Now, wait a minute, we have to talk about Bestow Curse for a second. When a creature casts Bestow Curse using a spell slot of 5th level or higher, it doesn't require concentration anymore. And looking at a coven's 5th level spells, they're not really going to use any of those in combat, so it's going to always cast Bestow Curse as a 5th level spell. But wait a sec, what curse are they going to use?
I'm glad you asked, AJ. If the hag is likely to land more hits than its opponent, it should use the curse that gives it the extra necrotic damage on a hit. If the opponent is likely to land more hits than the hag, it should use the curse that applies disadvantage to the opponent's attacks.
Right, and something else that you need to consider is that if the opponent attacking the hag has the extra attack ability, the hag should use the curse that applies the wasted action option.
This option, because of the action economy, is much more debilitating to a creature that has extra attack. Once a hag isn't close to a frightened opponent, and it has no realistic chance of getting a spell past the opponent's wisdom save, it will attack using its claws if an opponent is within easy reach.
And if no opponent's within easy reach, it's going to use the Ray of Sickness spell. Now, on the third round of combat, a hag coven will attempt other spells.
Like Bestow Curse, Hold Person, or Lightning Bolt.
Right, but by this point in the combat, the hag's going to know which creatures are resistant to its wisdom saving throws, so that'll help it decide which spells it's going to use. Now, even though they're evil, hags are living creatures and they want to keep living. As such, we say that they suffer a morale failure once they reach 1/4 of their hit points. And once they reach a morale failure, they will flee from combat, trying to dash away, by water if possible, because sea hags have an innate swimming speed and it'll let them get away a lot faster.
If a hag can't flee combat for whatever reason, it will pretend to be weak and helpless if she thinks it will spare her life or buy her time to retaliate or escape.
A hag that can't flee will also attempt to bribe the PCs who are attacking it, offering treasure or deals to try to persuade the PCs to spare its life.
But these always have some danger or curse or side effect that come along with them.
Now, something else to realize is that when a hag suffers a morale failure and tries to flee combat, if it gets more than 30 feet away from its sisters, its coven is broken.
This ticks off the other members of the coven. How dare that one hag break their coven? At this point, any of the other hags that haven't suffered a morale failure will attack the hag that fled and broke the covenant, attempting to kill the hag for abandoning them.
Right, and once any member of a coven either flees or is killed, the other hags remaining will cease to cooperate and fight only as individuals. And that's it! We hope this is enough to get you started using hags inside your monster encounters for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. There are a few different kinds of hags and they all offer a different take and theme inside of an encounter, and we hope you have fun using them. And we'd like to offer our most sincere apologies to the awesome Mr. B. Dave Walters. We wanted to get you on the air, we just ran out of time today. And don't forget to tune in next week when our special guest will be the amazing and iconic Mr. Ed Greenwood, the creator of the Forgotten Realms himself.
Ed is a wonderful man.
That's right, we love you, bud. But without further ado, let's get to Quill's joke of the day. Quill?
Why do witches get good bargains?
I don't know. Why do witches get good bargains?
Because they like to haggle.
Anyway, thanks for stopping by. We hope to see you again next time. Bye!
Bye.